stepped off the transport ship and felt the heavy gravity of 442B pull at his thin frame. The alien world was hotter than his home planet, with red dust that covered everything. He had traveled for weeks across the galaxy to reach this place. The Council had given him one task: watch the humans, learn about them, report back on whether they could be trusted. The humans called this world their colony. It looked like a war camp. Buildings were made of thick metal plates. Walls were high and strong. Guards stood at every entrance with weapons that looked crude compared to the technology of older species, but deadly nonetheless. This was what the humans had chosen to build when they first arrived in space. Captain Hayes was waiting for him at the landing platform. The human was tall, with dark skin and eyes that seemed to see everything at once. He did not bow or show the respect that other species displayed when meeting a council observer. Instead, he simply extended his hand in that strange human greeting. "Welcome to 442B," said. His voice was calm and direct. "I'm the military commander here. We have 8,000 civilians and 2,000 soldiers. You're here to figure out if we're worth saving." Did not know how to respond to such honesty. The human smiled slightly, as if he had said something funny. They shook hands, and noticed the human's grip was strong and firm. Showed around the colony. They walked past training grounds where human soldiers ran in the heat, carrying heavy loads on their backs. Other humans practiced fighting each other hand to hand, falling to the ground and standing up again, over and over. It seemed like pointless activity, too. The species did not engage in such physical contests. They solved problems with calculations and strategy. "Why do you make them do this?" asked, pointing at the soldiers. "Because when things go wrong, machines fail," said. "But a trained human soldier can always fight. The body and mind must be ready for anything." They visited the civilian sections. Children played outside under protective shields. People worked in food production areas and technical stations. Noticed something that surprised him. Humans touched each other frequently. They placed hands on shoulders. They looked at each other directly in the eyes. They seemed to find strength in being close to one another. That evening, invited to eat with some of the other officers. There was Captain Lisa Warren, who commanded the defensive systems. Lieutenant Jacob Cole led the infantry forces. There was also Sergeant Martin, who managed the soldiers' training. They sat together in a simple room with basic food on metal plates. "So the council sent an observer," Lisa said. She was a woman with light skin and red hair tied back tightly. "That means they are not sure about helping us." "The council must consider all options," said carefully. "You are new to galactic society. There are risks in defending you." "Risks to who?" Jacob asked. He was younger than, with a sharp look in his eyes. "To the, or to your comfortable position?" Raised his hand slightly. Jacob stopped talking, but his anger remained visible on his face. "They have been pushing outward for 5 years, explained Tu. They take what they want. They destroy what they don't need. The council has been watching and doing nothing. That is why they think they can come here and take our colony." "The council fears conflict," admitted. "War is destructive. It is better to surrender than to lose soldiers in a battle you cannot win." The room became very quiet. The humans looked at each other, then leaned forward. "Let me ask you something. If I told you that surrendering now would lead to the deaths of everyone here, would that change your mind about the council's advice?" "The do not kill surrendering populations," said. "They relocate them. They use them for labor, but they do not kill them." "And if they did," Lisa asked, "what if they decided humans were not useful? What then?" Had no answer. The council's calculations did not account for such possibilities. Over the next weeks, moved through the colony like an invisible observer. He watched humans work and train. He attended meetings where discussed defense strategies with his officers. He saw humans who were afraid but continued with their duties anyway. He saw them teaching younger soldiers, passing down knowledge about survival and fighting. One day, watched a young soldier named David fail during a training exercise. The soldier fell and seemed unable to continue. An older soldier named Robert helped him stand up. Robert did not laugh at David. Instead, he encouraged him to try again. David tried, and this time he succeeded. The two soldiers embraced briefly and both looked stronger for it. Realized something that disturbed him. Humans did not fight for themselves alone. They fought for each other. This made them dangerous in a way that the council did not understand. A message arrived from the through official channels. It was simple and direct. They demanded the human colony surrender within 1 week. If humans refused, they would come and take everything by force. The message included an estimate of military casualties. According to the calculation, humans could not win. Expected to announce immediate surrender. Every logical choice pointed toward giving up. They were stronger. The humans were outnumbered. Resistance would only result in death. Instead, called all the humans together. Soldiers and civilians gathered in the main meeting area, stood on a raised platform and looked down at his people. His voice was quiet, but every human heard him clearly. "They think we will run," said. "They think we value our lives more than our freedom. They are wrong. We will stand here. We will defend this colony. And if we fall, we will fall as humans, not as slaves." The humans did not cheer. They did not show excitement. Instead, they simply nodded. They understood what was saying. They understood that some things were worth dying for. Watched from the back of the room. He saw fear on human faces, yes, but he also saw something else. He saw determination. He saw loyalty. He saw people who were willing to face death not because they thought they would win, but because standing was the right thing to do. In that moment, began to understand why the universe might fear humans. It was not because they were strongest it was because they would fight for something beyond themselves. And an enemy that is willing to die is always more dangerous than an enemy that only wants to live. The council chamber was cold and silent. Transmitted his reports directly to the ancient stone walls where the council members sat in their positions of power. There were 7 council members representing 7 ancient species. They had ruled the galaxy for millions of years. Their decisions shaped the fate of countless worlds and billions of lives. Council Elder Vex spoke first. His species was known for perfect calculations. Every number was analyzed. Every outcome was predicted with accuracy. "The humans refuse surrender," Vex said. His voice sounded like wind moving through empty spaces. "The force is 75% larger. The humans possess no advanced defensive systems. The probability of human victory is 0.3%. Surrender is the logical choice." "But they have chosen not to surrender," said from his position in the chamber. "They have chosen to stand and fight." "Then they have chosen death," another council member said. This was Sara from the crystalline species. Her people were wise, but they also understood that some battles could not be won. "We cannot save them by defending them. We can only add our own losses to theirs." Received the council's message the next day. The council had formally advised surrender. They would not send military support. They would not defend the colony. The humans were on their own. Was present when read the message to his officers. The human's face did not change. He simply nodded and turned to his military leaders. "We expected nothing from them," said. "We will not be surprised by their failure to act. Prepare the defenses. Assume we stand alone." Lisa Warren moved immediately to her stations. She began redirecting power to the defensive walls. She repositioned weapons in the strongest defensive positions. Her team worked without sleep, calculating angles and firing zones. Jacob Cole gathered the infantry soldiers. He stood before them in the hot morning light and spoke with a clear voice. "The council has abandoned us," Jacob said. "They believe we cannot win. They are probably right, but we are going to stand here anyway. We are going to make them pay a price that they will remember. We are going to show the galaxy what humans can do when they have nowhere left to run." The soldiers did not look afraid. Instead, they looked focused. They began checking their weapons. They began training with even more intensity. They knew what was coming. Watched a soldier named teaching younger soldiers about weapons. Was perhaps 30 years old, with a strong build and steady hands. He showed them how to aim. He showed them how to handle the weapon when they were tired and afraid. He showed them how to support each other when things became difficult. "Most of you will be scared," said to the young soldiers. "That is natural. Fear means you are aware. Fear means you are paying attention. But we do not let fear stop us. We use it. We let it make us alert and ready." The young soldiers listened carefully. They asked questions, answered everything honestly. He did not lie to them about the danger. He did not pretend that everything would be fine. Asked about this later. Why tell them the truth about danger when it would make them more afraid? "Because they will see the truth anyway," said. "Better they hear it from us. Better they know what to expect. That way, when things become hard, they are not surprised. They are ready." In the civilian areas, something different was happening. Mothers were moving their children to the safest shelters. Teachers were making sure supplies were stored. Doctors were preparing medical stations. The civilians knew that the soldiers would be fighting to protect them. They prepared themselves to survive what was coming. Visited the shelters every day. He spoke with the people who would be hiding while the battle happened above them. He told them that the soldiers were trained and ready. He told them that the humans had beaten greater odds before, on their home planet of Earth. "We come from a world where life is hard," told a group of civilians. "We come from a place where the sun burns and the storms rage. We come from a world where predators hunt and survival is never guaranteed. That world made us strong. That world taught us to never give up." The civilians listened. Some were afraid, some were angry, but they seemed to find strength in words. 3 days before the expected attack, the colony received a transmission. It was from the commander. The message was direct and simple. "Surrender now and your people will be spared. Surrender in 1 day and most will be spared. Surrender after battle begins and none will be spared. You are primitive. You are nothing to us. Surrender is your only option." Recorded a response immediately. He sent it directly to the commander. "We are humans," said in the message. "We are from Earth, a world that tries to kill us every day. We have survived. We have learned. We have built this colony and we will defend it. Come and try to take it from us. We will show you what can do." The message was short. It was clear. It was a direct refusal. Observed in the hours that followed. The human did not seem to be afraid. Instead, he seemed to be focused. He moved through the colony checking weapons, speaking with officers, ensuring that every soldier and civilian knew what to do. Lisa called to the control station. She wanted him to understand the human defensive plan. "We cannot beat them in a direct fight," Lisa said, pointing at the tactical display. The red shapes representing the forces were larger and more numerous than the blue shapes representing the humans. "But we can force them to come to us. We can make them attack through narrow passages. We can make them take losses. We can make them think about whether we are worth the cost." "You believe you can win?" asked. "No," Lisa said honestly. "I believe we can hurt them. I believe we can make them understand that taking us will be difficult. And maybe, if we fight hard enough, the council will see that we are worth saving." Jacob approached them with a grim expression. 2 hours to battle," he said. "All soldiers are in position. All weapons are ready. We are as prepared as we can be." Stood on a high platform overlooking the defensive walls. He looked out at the desert beyond the colony, where the forces would soon appear. His hand rested on his weapon. Asked if he had regrets, should they have surrendered. "No," said. "Fear can make you do the wrong thing. If we surrender now, they can take what they want from anyone. If we fight now, we show them that some things are not easy to take. Some things are worth dying for." The sun began to set. The sky turned red and orange. In the distance, dust began to rise. They were coming. The battle was about to begin, and finally understood why and his soldiers were not afraid. They were not fighting to win. They were fighting to prove something. They were fighting to show the galaxy that humans would stand, no matter the cost. The forces hit the colony defenses with a force that shook the ground. Stood in the observation tower, watching the battle unfold below him. Massive war machines rolled forward on heavy treads. Their weapons fired in coordinated patterns. The sound was enormous, like thunder crashing across the entire sky. The human defenses held at first. Lisa Warren directed the fire from the control center, moving weapons to where they were needed most. The first wave of machines advanced slowly, taking damage but continuing forward. Human soldiers fired from behind reinforced positions. They hit soldiers and machines, but more kept coming. Had studied military tactics for his entire life. He understood strategy and calculation. What he was watching now violated every principle of war. The force was simply too strong. The humans should be focusing on escape routes and civilian evacuation. Instead, they were fighting as if they believed they could actually win. 2 hours into the battle, they breached the outer wall on the western side. Watched as a massive explosion tore through the reinforced barrier. Soldiers began pouring through the opening. The humans there fell back, moving to secondary defensive positions as planned. But then something went wrong, or perhaps it went right, depending on how one viewed it. Captain Lisa Warren's defensive station reported that the secondary line was about to be overrun. The human soldiers in that position were pinned. They could not retreat without exposing the civilian shelters behind them. There were families in those shelters. Children slept in those protected spaces, trusting that the soldiers above would keep them safe. Jacob Cole was commanding the reserve forces. He was positioned behind the main defensive lines, waiting for the moment when they would break through completely. That moment was coming fast. Heard Jacob speak through the communication system. His voice was calm and clear. "We are moving forward. We are counterattacking through the western breach. All reserve units follow me." Was on the communication system immediately. "Jacob, you will be completely exposed. You will lose half your people." "Then we will lose half our people," Jacob said. "The alternative is losing everyone. We move forward now." And they did. Watched as hundreds of human soldiers stood up from their protected positions and ran toward the forces. They moved into the open ground where the weapons could reach them. They ran forward even though it was mathematically impossible for them to survive this action. The soldiers seemed confused. This was not how species usually fought. Species fought defensively. Species tried to preserve themselves. Species did not charge into overwhelming fire. But humans did. Saw a soldier named run forward, his weapon firing rapidly. He reached a downed soldier and picked him up. Then he kept running forward, carrying the wounded man toward the advancing position. Another soldier, a woman named, followed him. She was small and quick, moving between the chaos and danger to reach wounded people. The charging humans did not move in a perfect formation. They did not follow the mathematical calculations that would produce the maximum efficiency. Instead, they moved together. Soldiers helped each other. They covered each other. When one fell, another stopped to help them up or to carry them forward. Jacob Cole was at the center of this charge. He moved with purpose and fury. His weapons blazed, but noticed something strange. Jacob was not just fighting to kill. He was fighting to push the back. He was creating space. He was opening passages. And then understood. Jacob was charging not because the humans could win, but because they needed to break the formation. They needed to create confusion in the enemy lines. They needed to give themselves time to evacuate the civilians and reestablish the defensive positions. It was a suicide attack, dressed up as a counteroffensive. The humans took terrible losses, watched soldiers fall. He heard the communication chatter as officers reported casualties. 30 dead, 50 dead, 100 dead. But the formation broke. The carefully organized attack became chaotic. The soldiers were elite warriors, but they were not prepared for an enemy that did not follow the normal rules of combat. Lisa Warren seized the moment. She redirected the remaining fixed defenses. She found angles where the soldiers were exposed. She opened fire with precision. They were forced to regroup. They pulled back from the western positions. Jacob's attack had bought time. The civilians were evacuated deeper into the protected shelters. The human soldiers who survived pulled back to new defensive positions. The battle paused but did not end. Left the observation tower and went to the medical center. He wanted to understand what had just happened. What had driven these humans to charge forward into certain death? He found the soldier was sitting on a medical table, his arm being treated for a burn wound. His face was covered in dust and blood. His eyes looked tired. "Why did you do that?" asked directly. "You knew you could not win. You knew people would die." Looked at for a long moment before answering. "My sister is in the shelters," said. "She is 12 years old. I charged forward because it kept her alive. That is why we do it. We do not fight for ourselves. We fight for everyone behind us." Did not know how to respond to this. He went to the command center next. Was there, reviewing the damage reports. The human commander looked exhausted but not broken. His eyes were still focused and clear. "You lost 137 soldiers in that charge," said. "The mathematics suggest that the gain was not worth the loss." "The mathematics," said quietly, "do not account for the people we saved. My calculation includes every child still alive in those shelters. It includes every mother who will see her children grow up. That is a calculation you understand now, I hope." The battle continued through the night. They kept attacking. The humans kept defending. But something had changed. They seemed less certain now. They had expected an enemy that would fold under pressure. Instead, they had found an enemy that would charge into the fire itself. By morning, they were pulling their forces back, not in a full retreat but in a tactical withdrawal. They were regrouping. They were preparing for another attack, but could see the change in their movements. They were no longer confident. They were no longer certain of victory. Recorded his observations. He sent them to the council chamber. He reported the unexpected human action. He reported the breaking of normal military doctrine. He reported that he now understood why the universe feared humans. It was not because they were stronger or smarter. It was because they were willing to die for something beyond themselves. And that made them unpredictable. That made them dangerous in ways that advanced weapons and superior numbers could not overcome. They pulled back their main forces on the second day of battle. They held their position just beyond the defensive walls, waiting and watching. Used this time to regroup and rebuild his defenses. The battle had become something different now. It was no longer a simple attack and defense. It had become a test of will. Found himself taking a more active role. He was no longer simply an observer. Had asked him to help coordinate information between the human forces. The captain explained that status as a council representative might give them access to information they otherwise could not receive. Accepted the role without hesitation. Something had changed in him during the battle. He could no longer stand apart and simply watch. He had to act. He moved through the colony communicating with different units. He saw soldiers checking weapons and treating injuries. He saw medics working continuously to save lives. There was a woman named who moved from one wounded soldier to another, helping them, speaking to them, keeping them alive even when the situation seemed hopeless. "Why do you do this?" asked as she worked on a wounded soldier. "This man will likely die anyway. The wound is too severe for even your medical technology to fix." Did not stop working. Her hands moved with practiced efficiency, measuring medicine and applying bandages. "I do it because he is still alive," said. "While he is alive, he has a chance. I will not stop trying until that chance is gone." She was right. The soldier, a man named Robert, recovered after several hours of treatment. His life had been saved by his persistence and skill. Robert thanked her quietly and returned to duty even though his movements were slow and painful. That evening was when the military commander received a wound. A projectile came through the command center window. It caught in the side. Blood poured from the wound. Medical personnel rushed forward to help. "Stay here," said, even as the medics were moving him. "I am not going to evacuation. Patch me up and get me back to my command position." "Sir, you need proper medical care," one of the medics said. "You need to rest." "I can rest after we stop said. His voice was firm. "Right now I am needed here." The medics worked quickly. They gave medication for the pain. They dressed the wound with medical compounds that would slow bleeding and speed healing. Within 30 minutes was back in the command center, moving carefully but working at full capacity. Asked about the pain, did he not feel it? "Of course I feel it," said. "Pain tells me I am alive. Pain tells me what I can still do, but pain is not a reason to stop. Pain is just a signal that the body sends. You feel it, you work through it, you continue." The next attack came in the afternoon. They had changed their tactics. Instead of attacking the main defenses, they were probing for weak points. They were testing different areas of the human line to find where they could break through. Jacob Cole was moving between positions, making small adjustments to the defense. He watched where the pushed hardest and moved human forces there. It was tactical thinking at its finest. Jacob was not fighting to win. He was fighting to survive each moment. He was fighting to hold on just a little bit longer. A young soldier named David was in one of the positions under heavy attack. This was his first real battle. He was 19 years old, small and scared. The fire was coming down on his position with terrible intensity. Watched as another soldier, a man named Martin, moved to David's position. Martin was older, a veteran of several smaller conflicts. Martin did not try to protect David. Instead, he fought alongside him. He showed David how to angle his body to present a smaller target. He showed David how to breathe between shots to calm his nerves. He showed David that he was not alone. "They want you to be afraid," Martin told David as the weapon's fire continued. "They want you to make mistakes, but you are not alone. I am here. We will fight this together." David looked at Martin for a moment. Then he nodded. He straightened his weapon and focused on the targets in front of him. The position held. That night sat with Jacob Cole in a quiet part of the command center. Jacob was reviewing reports of the day's battles. His face showed the weight of every decision he had made. Every order he gave had resulted in someone being hurt or killed. "How do you live with it?" asked. "How do you make decisions when every choice results in death?" Jacob looked up from his reports. His eyes were tired but clear. "On Earth, my people learned long ago that sometimes you do not have good choices," Jacob said. "Sometimes you only have bad choices and worse choices. You choose the one that saves the most lives. You live with what happens. You remember those who died, and you try to do better the next time." The battle continued for 3 more days. They attacked with repeated intensity. The humans held their positions, although barely. They lost more soldiers every day, but they did not break. They did not surrender. They held on. Worked beside them the entire time. He helped move ammunition. He assisted with medical supplies. He worked in the communication center passing messages between different units. He was no longer an observer. He was part of the defense. He also recorded everything. He sent detailed reports to the council about what he was seeing. He explained the human actions in terms the council could understand. He showed them the mathematical calculations that suggested the humans should have fallen days ago. He showed them the human defiance that made those calculations irrelevant. The council members began to respond with confusion and concern. They argued among themselves about what should be done. Some wanted to send forces now. Some wanted to wait and see if the humans could actually survive. Some wanted to study the humans more before making a decision. But was clear in his reports. The humans were not fighting to win. They were fighting to survive. They were fighting because giving up was not an acceptable option. This made them unpredictable in ways that the council could not calculate. On the evening of the third additional day, found alone, the human commander was looking out at the desert where the forces were positioned. His wound was healing, but slowly. The pain in his side was obvious in the way he held his body. "Why did you ask me to help?" asked. "Why bring in a council observer to work alongside your soldiers?" "Because," said, "I wanted you to understand. You had to see it from the inside. You had to feel what it means to fight for something bigger than yourself. And now that you have felt it, you will report it to the council accurately. You will make them understand why they should help us." Realized that had not just been asking for help, had been teaching. He had been showing the truth of human nature. He had been preparing to become the bridge between humanity and the council. "I will," said, "I will make them understand." The human commander placed his hand on shoulder. It was a gesture of trust and respect. "That is all I ask," said, returned to the council chambers after 7 days of continuous battle. He had traveled on a fast transport ship, leaving the colony at a critical moment. They were still attacking. The humans were still defending, but something had changed. They had begun to pull back. They had become uncertain. Stood before the 7 council members. They waited for his report with expressions of controlled interest. These ancient beings had heard countless reports over their millions of years of existence. They believed they had seen everything. They believed that nothing could surprise them anymore. "The humans have held the colony," said. He did not use charts or calculations. He simply spoke the truth. The forces outnumbered them by 3-1. The weapons were more advanced. They had superior tactical positions. By every measurement, the humans should have fallen on the first day. "And yet they did not," Elder Vex asked. The crystalline council member's voice was like music but with sharp edges. "And yet they did not," confirmed. "They not only held their positions, they counterattacked. They broke the formation. They bought time for their civilians to evacuate to safety. They fought in ways that violated every principle of warfare that we understand." "Give us specifics," another council member demanded. This was Sara, who had opposed human aid from the beginning. "Explain to us the tactical advantages that allowed them to resist." Took a moment. He had known this question would come. He had prepared his answer. "There were no tactical advantages," said. "There were no clever strategies that our calculations had missed. The humans won because they did something we did not account for. They charged directly into the fire when every other species would have retreated." The council chamber became silent. It was the silence of profound confusion. "They charged deliberately into superior fire?" Vex asked, as if making sure he had understood the words correctly. "Yes," said. "They charged because doing so broke the formation. They charged because it protected the civilians in the shelters. They charged even though many of them died. They charged because the alternative was unacceptable." "What was the alternative?" Sora asked. "Surrender." "Yes," said. "Surrender would have saved more lives in the short term. Surrender would have been the logical choice, but the humans did not choose surrender." Then explained the military situation in detail. He described each battle. He explained the human formations and tactics. He spoke about Captain Lisa Warren's defensive innovations and Lieutenant Jacob Cole's counterattacks. He talked about the soldiers like and Martin who had inspired others through their own actions and sacrifices. But mostly talked about Hayes. "The human commander is wounded," said. "He sustained a serious injury from enemy fire. A logical military leader would have evacuated to a safe location. Instead, remained in command. He continued to lead his people even though every movement caused him pain." "Why?" another council member asked. Why would he not follow the logical choice? Because, said carefully, humans are not logical in the way that we are. They do not calculate consequences and choose the action with the best mathematical outcome. Instead, they choose the action that aligns with their values and principles. For remaining with his people was more important than eliminating his own pain. Vex moved forward slightly. The crystalline council members' form shifted as he processed the information. You are saying that the humans made choices based on emotion rather than calculation? Vex asked. I am saying that humans make choices based on something deeper than calculation, said. They make choices based on loyalty, on sacrifice, on the belief that some things are worth dying for, and this makes them unpredictable in ways that our models cannot account for. The council members began to argue among themselves. Some wanted to support the humans immediately. Some wanted to wait longer and see what happened. Some wanted to study the humans more carefully before committing resources. Then spoke again, his voice cutting through the debate. I understand your uncertainty, said. I felt the same uncertainty when I first arrived. I believed the humans were simple soldiers fighting a losing battle, but I was wrong. The humans are something different. They are a species that has learned to value loyalty and sacrifice above survival itself, and such a species can never be conquered by force alone. What are you suggesting? Sora asked, her voice showing doubt and something else, perhaps respect. I am suggesting that the will eventually give up, said. I am suggesting that the cannot understand an enemy that continues fighting even when defeat seems certain. The will decide that the cost of taking the human colony is too high. They will pull back, and the humans will hold their position not because they have defeated but because the will decide that defeating humans is not worth the cost. And if you are wrong, Vex asked. If I am wrong, then the humans will fall, said. But they will fall standing, fighting to the last person, and in falling they will teach the galaxy something that we have forgotten. They will teach us that there are things worth more than survival. There are things worth more than victory. There are things worth dying for. The council voted that day. 4 members voted to send military support to the human colony. 3 members abstained, including Sora. The decision was made. The council would send forces to support the human defense. Left the council chambers and returned to his ship. As he traveled back to 442B, he thought about what he had said to the council. Most of it had been true, but there was something else he had not told them. Had been changed by his experience with the humans. He had stopped being merely an observer. He had become someone who believed in the cause they were fighting for. He had become someone who understood why humans would charge forward into fire. The truth was that they had already begun to pull back when left the colony. The humans' stubborn refusal to surrender had broken something in the psychology. They were warriors, but they were not prepared for warriors who did not value their own survival. When the council forces arrived at 442B, the battle was already turning in humanity's favor. They were in full retreat, received the news of council support with quiet satisfaction. He did not celebrate. He simply nodded and continued working to drive the away completely. The battle lasted another 3 days. Then they were gone. They did not surrender. They simply left. They returned to their own space and did not return to 442B again. Stood beside as the human commander looked out at the desert where the forces had been positioned. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and red. Thank you, said Tu. I do not know what you said to the council, but they came. That was all we needed. I told them the truth, said. I told them that humans are unpredictable. I told them that humans will fight for something beyond themselves. I told them that an enemy willing to die is more powerful than an enemy focused only on survival. Nodded slowly. That is the truth, said. That is what humans are. We are imperfect. We are limited. But we are willing to stand for what we believe in. And that makes us dangerous to anyone who believes that the universe can be controlled through force and calculation alone. Was named the first official ambassador to humanity. He would spend the rest of his life working to bridge the gap between human understanding and galactic civilization. He would teach the older species about sacrifice and loyalty. He would teach them that true power comes not from strength, but from the willingness to stand for something beyond yourself. And whenever they asked him about the humans, he would tell them one simple truth. The universe fears humans not because they are strongest. The universe fears humans because they are willing to die for something more important than themselves. And such enemies can never be truly defeated through force or calculation alone.